Hello, my name is Stephen Munatones. I thought I was able to actually see everybody here. I'm the CEO and co-founder of KAATSU Global, and I want to thank all of you for attending this webinar. The idea of this webinar is actually just to share information with you, answer any questions that you may have, and explain different aspects of KAATSU. Either we can go very deeply or just very superficially. And I prepared a standard PowerPoint presentation. This is a PowerPoint presentation that we usually give to universities, researchers, scientists, teams, whether they're Olympic team, a university team, a professional team, a high school team, or a bunch of adults who just gather that are interested. And what I'll do is I will share my screen, and then we'll talk through the questions that some of you already sent in, and others. So here we have the PowerPoint presentation. It's quite lengthy, and we won't go over all of it, but it does have some of the history. It has visuals that can explain. So I'll just start from the beginning. And if you have any questions, there's a raise your hand function or chat function that you can push or ask a question, interrupt me anytime. So let me go to the first. Sorry for this inevitable spinning wheel. Let me go back. Come on. Okay, here we go. So what is KAATSU? KAATSU is a system, and I actually have it on my arm right now, just like this illustration here. And it's a system that was invented by Dr. Sato from Tokyo, Japan, initially to help him build muscle. Later, he found out there was all kinds of secondary and tertiary effects of KAATSU, but we'll get into that. But KAATSU is basically bands or elastic bands. Some of you have different models. Right now, our current models that we offer are called the B2 and C4. C stands for cycle, meaning pressure on, pressure off, and B stands for Bluetooth. So one of them has a system of tubes, the other one does not have tubes. But these bands go around your upper arms and upper legs. Now, there's a very specific way how you put on these bands properly, and we'll get into that. But what Dr. Sato and his colleagues included a team of cardiologists at the University of Tokyo Hospital, so the equivalent of their Harvard Medical School or Mayo Clinic or Cleveland Clinic, Johns Hopkins, etc. in Japan. They found out that doing KAATSU on the arms and legs is a way to actually strengthen our vascular system, meaning our arteries, veins, and capillaries. But they did it in such a way that was non-intuitive, and meaning it didn't seem logical at the time. And so what happens is, as we all know, we put the bands on either our arms or legs. We use the cycle function, which is pressure on, pressure off. And what that does, it allows the blood to go into the hands or the feet. And then when the band is inflated, the blood is slowed down coming back. It's sort of a mini dam, if you will. So blood goes in every heartbeat. And normally, without a band, it'll just flow back out. But with a band, there's a slight damming effect, and there's an engorgement or an overabundance of blood in the limb. And this is the catalyst for all the other benefits of KAATSU, from that point on. Now, when they discovered this effect, this very healthful effect, they then submitted a patent. And this is the patent that is the basis for everything we do in KAATSU. And I'll just read it out loud. You can read along with me, but you can see the inventor is Dr. Sato from Tokyo, Japan. And the patent is, KAATSU is a method of strengthening the blood vessels with extreme ease and a compression and decompression system. So that is what KAATSU is. We perhaps overemphasize the effect of building muscle or the rehabilitation impact, but at the fundamental basis, it's a means for strengthening our blood vessels. Now, when we say strengthen, that actually means we're increasing the elasticity of our capillaries and veins. What does that mean? That means the capillaries and veins actually stretch. They're able to stretch more than normal. In other words, they're able to stretch like they were when we were teenagers. I'm 62, so ideally I would like my vascular system to be as elastic, as resilient, as strong as it was when I was 18. Now, that won't occur, but certainly I want to aim for that. And that is what KAATSU is fundamentally. Now, we can go into all kind of details, but I think the best way to proceed is we did receive 3 questions from you ahead of time. First one was from Nina, and the question was, oops, how do I? I'm sorry. Nina's question was, how can a person with varicose veins on their legs use KAATSU? That's the first question that we'll address. The second question I'll read after, and the third question is about thumb tendonitis. But let's look at this very practical question about what if you have varicose veins in your legs and how to use KAATSU? That's actually a very good question because that actually delves right into really the fundamentals of KAATSU. And I'll proceed. You see on this young lady, she has the very narrow KAATSU bands on our right side, and then she has a typical blood pressure cuff on the other side. And with KAATSU, when people first see the KAATSU band, they automatically think in their heads, that's a blood pressure cuff. But the structure and the design of this is dramatically different from this. The purpose of the KAATSU and the purpose of the blood pressure cuff are completely at the opposite ends of the spectrum. The KAATSU band, when it is inflated, its purpose is to slow down the natural flow of blood from the hands or feet back to the torso. That's what it does. So in other words, every heartbeat, blood is going into the limb normally, and when the band is inflated, in the case of the B2 or the C4 models, it's inflated for 30 seconds. And in that case, for 30 seconds, the blood is not stopped from flowing, it is simply slowed down. In contrast, the blood pressure cuff, as we all know when we take our blood pressure, it gets very, very tight. It starts off slowly and then builds for a certain period of time. And it gets very, very tight. Some people call it uncomfortable. And the purpose there is actually literally to stop the blood flow. Then the healthcare professional takes our measurement. So in this case, its purpose is to occlude or cut off the blood supply down. Now, it's only for a temporary period of time, but that's what this function is. Now, to answer the question, is it used for varicose veins? Sorry, it's acting a little slowly here. We can see and we know that KAATSU can be used up either on our upper arms or upper legs. Now, when it's used on the lower part of the body, And I'll skip to this illustration here. This is what we normally, if we remember back in our uh, days of high school or college biology, these are the stereotypical illustrations that we receive when we have, when we're studying the body and the vascular system. And remember, the bands, in the case of, sorry, it's a little slow here. Okay, so in the case of this a lady, she has the bands properly placed on her upper legs. So what's happening, the bands are right here. With every heartbeat, blood goes into the limb normally. So those bands do not occlude, do not cut off anything, but they go down, and then the body naturally has evolved. So the blood comes back up. Now, when you have varicose veins, what happens is that when the blood goes back up, so it's fighting against gravity, when it's fighting against gravity, there are valves in the leg at certain parts. In other words, if we didn't have this system, so the heart beats and blood is ejected out and it goes along the arteries, which are these red lines. So the blood is, and the red lines indicate blood is going out to your hands or feet. The blue indicates the blood is coming back to the heart. So with every heartbeat, blood is going down, but the blood now needs to fight against gravity and come back up. Those veins and the arteries are the red things. The veins are the blue things. The blue things have valves. Think about a lock, L-O-C-K, when when a boat is going, let's say, through the Panama Canal, and the or the water goes to a certain level, then it's sort of shut off, then blood, and then water is increased in the next lock, and so on and so forth. In the same way, blood is go to a certain level, there's a valve, it passes through the valve, and it continues going. When we have varicose veins, those valves there's something wrong with them. Sometimes they get sticky or less elastic. And our varicose veins is that backflow of blood in the varicose veins. Now, one of the goals of KAATSU, remember Dr. Sato and his colleagues developed this system for strengthening blood vessels or increasing the elasticity. So when we have varicose veins, what's happening is that valve that is helping the blood flow back normally is not working optimally, it's not working well, and then we get these unsightly backflow. Those are what we call varicose veins. Now, KAATSU, done repeatedly, done daily, done gently, enables this vascular tissue of the arteries and veins to become more elastic. In other words, to go back to normal as our bodies were when we were teenagers and young adults. So then these varicose, these valves that cause the varicose veins suddenly get more elastic. They start acting normally. When they act normally or function normally, the blood then flows normally. When they flows normally, then you don't get the backflow. If you don't get the backflow, then those varicose veins, they don't disappear. What they just go, the veins function normally, and there's no backflow. There's no backflow, then you get no unsightly varicose veins at the surface of your skin. Now, this process does not happen overnight or even in a matter of a few weeks, because it took years for these varicose veins, or months in the case of childbirth, let's say, to develop. It takes months and sometimes up to a year for those veins the valves of the veins to become more elastic, sufficiently elastic, so it creates no backflow. So the answer to the initial question, how to use KAATSU, if you have varicose on the veins, you use it as it was intended. So in other words, use KAATSU daily, use it in a gentle manner, meaning you don't tie it so tight that it's functioning as a tourniquet. You use the KAATSU cycle mode, so 30 seconds of pressure followed by 5 seconds of deflation, followed by another 30 seconds of inflation, 5 seconds of deflation. You do that, and gradually the vascular tissue becomes more elastic, and that backflow ceases to exist. Backflow ceases to exist. The varicose veins go away. So this is how a person would use varicose with varicose veins can use KAATSU. I'll go to the second and third question and continue the explanation, and then if we have questions at the end, we can address them. So the next question is, how do I best explain KAATSU to a friend? It looks complicated. I would like a simple way to explain and demonstrate it, KAATSU. I've used it since 2020, and I am 66 years old. I'm a fan. My husband and twins are also users. I bought them both the kit in 2022. Secondly, because I use the system several times a week, 5 to 7 times, the armbands have made a permanent dent in my arms. I am no longer using the leg bands at all for the same reason. Is that inevitable? So there's a few questions here. Let's go one by one. How do I best explain KAATSU to a friend? I think we go back to sort of the first few slides and explain that KAATSU is a way to strengthen our vascular system. It's a way to improve the blood flow. Now, as a result of strengthening our vascular tissue, as a result of improving the blood flow, when you combine it with very simple movement, and that simple movement can be as simple as opening and closing your hands. It could be as simple as holding a book and turning the pages. It can be as simple as wiping your countertop, or it can be as complicated as playing the piano, typing emails, doing burpees, sit-ups, push-ups, walking your dog, etc. So when you do KAATSU and you're increasing the amount of blood in the limbs, and you combine that with simple or complicated movement, then that leads to a hormonal response. The biggest hormone that we know of that is a result of KAATSU is the human growth hormone. And what happens is when you do movement and you're doing the KAATSU cycles, this sends a signal from the muscle through the central nervous system up to the brain in a part of the brain that we call the pituitary gland that sits right behind the eyeball. And the pituitary gland senses some kind of stress on the muscle. So you're doing some kind of movement. It doesn't have to be lifting heavy weights. It could be as simple as wiping a countertop. It senses stress. The brain is very intelligent. It senses stress on the muscle, and then it secretes or it produces human growth hormone. Now, how does the human growth hormone go? How does it help us? The human growth hormone is released by this gland that sits right behind the eyeball, and then it flows through our entire body, through our vascular system. So it goes in the arteries and veins and small capillaries, etc. That is one of the many different proteins, metabolites, hormone that are produced as a result of KAATSU. Some of the effects of KAATSU are produced in the torso, pancreas. Some of it is produced in the pituitary gland. Some of it is produced on the inner lining of our vascular tissue. We can go into some depth, but at the first level, that's what the effect of KAATSU is. So it is complicated. You do need to understand a bit of human anatomy, a bit of human physiology, but simply put, it's a way to strengthen our vascular tissue, arteries, capillaries, and veins, and then that leads to a hormonal response. Things are flowing through the body as a result. Is a convenient way that you could do that sitting in your office, sitting in front of your television, or doing regular household chores. So that is a very simple explanation of KAATSU. Now, how do you demonstrate it? Demonstration actually, when we do KAATSU and we show people, well, let's put a band on an arm. And when you put the band on the arm and the band is going, it's inflating, deflating, inflating, deflating, it changes. So this side of this illustration we call in homeostasis, or the body's in its normal state. Then all of a sudden we put a band on the other arm and it changes the dynamics of what's happening in the body. So under homeostasis, this is just an illustration. So obviously we have many more capillaries and are shown in this illustration. But for illustration purposes, it's acting normally. You look at your hand, look at your feet, look at your face. Everything is normal. When you put the bands on, what's happening is more blood is engorged, and you can see the difference between this arm and this arm. And then your hands and your forearms, etc., legs, if you have the leg bands on, get more pink or rosy. If you're doing exercises, it might even turn red. And how red or how pink does it appear? We asked the 56-year-old woman. She's a regular user of KAATSU. She's an esthetician, so she's always using her hands. She's doing facials, she's removing body hair, etc. And she has tendonitis, which will be related to the third question. But we asked her in the court, and she actually uses her bands as she is working. So I went over to her office and I said, can you demonstrate to me how you use the KAATSU? And as she was using the KAATSU, I was very impressed because her skin pinked up or got this rosy color almost immediately. Again, this on her hand that is shown on the left side, there is no band on this arm. And on this arm, she used her KAATSU. I think she had a C3 model at the time, and she was doing it medium pressure on the cut cycle. And immediately it changed. So this is our normal skin color, and this is what we call our KAATSU color. Now there is a dramatic difference here. Now, of course, this esthetician, her name is Tina. She's been using KAATSU for several years now, probably 7 or 8 years now, and so her body is well acclimated to the effects of KAATSU. So when she does KAATSU, all of the very, very small capillaries of her arm, her hands, etc., get engorged in blood. So if we go back to this illustration, this is what we learn in high school or college biology, these kind of simplified illustrations. But in fact, our vascular system is much more complicated. It's much more vast, much more ubiquitous throughout our body. In fact, if you take the distance, approximate distance, of course, of all of the capillaries and veins in the human body, the distance of that cumulative length would wrap around the earth 2 times. 2 times. That's how long and how multiple or numerous our capillaries are. So in Tina's case, when she had a band on one arm and not on the other, all of these very, very small capillaries got engorged in blood. And that is what we see here. And this is what we call our KAATSU color. So we want to strengthen our vascular tissue, because that's the basis of what we're doing, by putting bands on our upper arms or upper legs. And in this particular illustrative case, we're simply showing how we get that KAATSU color. Now, although the bands may look like a tourniquet to the untrained eye, to the trained eye, they're vastly different. So if I put the same pressure here and the same pressure here, what would happen is this hand would turn white because blood will be occluded or cut off. In this case, the hand turns red, as Tina's did. And so what happens here is this is a way, again, to reinforce a way to strengthen the vascular tissue in our body, and that leads to a hormonal response. Now, how much are we changing? This is just another, oh, I'm sorry. Tina actually was using the old C cycle 2.0, we call it. So you see one of her hands, I actually had a picture of her unit here and the band on her arm. And she was a former national level athlete, represented the United States in various international competition as a young girl, 13, 14, 15 years old. She's now 56. So you can see the changes that happen when she uses KAATSU versus not KAATSU. But how much pressure is really in this band? And that is really, really revealing. And so we have this image. We took it in a laboratory, and this shows, this is an upper arm. So the armpit is here, the hands are over on the left. This line indicates the approximate location of the band, the KAATSU band that's on, I'll go here, it's on Tina's arm here. And this particular image is set when KAATSU is at 300 SKU. So quite high, actually. And so it's set here. And this here is the artery. I'm sorry, this here is the artery, the top one. And the bottom is the vein. And so what happens is blood goes in, blood goes in this way and out this way. So the artery, blood is going in toward the hand, and then the vein is coming out back to the torso. But when you notice, when the band, because of the structure of the band, even though it's around the circumference of the arm, remarkably, and this was designed to achieve this, is that the artery really doesn't change at all, which means that the blood flows normally in toward the arm, but you can see the vein changes a little bit. And this is when it's in an inflated stage. When it's in its non-inflated stage, it's a little bit wider. And so this is that damming effect that cause this temporary pinking up or KAATSU color. Now, the second question in a second part of the second question is she uses the system several times a week, 5 or 6 days a week, and that's very good. And the armbands have made a permanent dent in my arms. So, to be honest, I've never heard that before. I've been doing KAATSU since 2001, seeing thousands of patients or users, and I've never heard of a permanent dent in an arm. I would guess, I'm guessing here, that there is either a increase in the musculature of the biceps and triceps, or the bands are being placed too tightly and the skin and the subcutaneous tissue is compressed a little bit. So it looks like there's a permanent dent. But again, in all my years of doing KAATSU, also with Dr. Sato has been doing KAATSU since 1966. He and I speak almost daily. He's still a daily user of KAATSU. He still teaches KAATSU every day. We've never heard of dents in the arms. Now, it's not to say it didn't occur, but with all the tens of thousands of patients that he's seen and the thousands of individuals that I've seen and done KAATSU with, we've not seen this. So I would say this is a unique situation. In order to prevent this, what I would do would a few things. One, I would be very well hydrated when I do KAATSU. In other words, I would make sure that I drank a full bottle of water at least a half an hour before I start my KAATSU session. Secondly, I would do, and I see there's two questions, so I'll get to your questions after the end this. And then secondly, what I would do is I would put the band on a little less tightly. And thirdly, I would always use the low pressure. So those are what I would recommend. And let me get to the questions. I'm going to stop the share. And we'll go. Oh, let's see. Nope. Let's see. Maybe the questions are here. Sheila, okay. You had a question. I just clicked to allow you to talk. Let's see. Okay, Sheila. I think you can talk, Sheila. Hello, Sheila. Maybe if you can unmute yourself. Maybe I have to unmute you. Okay. Okay, I've unmuted you. Let's see. Try that again. Okay. I can't, Sheila. Unfortunately, I can't. I'm trying to unmute you, and it's not unmute. It's not allowing you to be unmuted. I apologize for that. Maybe if you could put your question in the chat, that would be easier. And I apologize for this. But while we're here, let me. There's the three more questions that came in. And the first one is, can KAATSU help with improving mental health? If so, has anyone used successfully for that? So we have to be careful about making undocumented medical claims, but we do have many individuals, usually soldiers with PTSD, who swear by KAATSU. And you might ask, why does that occur? One of the things that KAATSU, one of the molecules that KAATSU does produce is a molecule called a beta endorphin. Some of you may have heard that is having runner's high, if you will. And with runner's high, you get a dose, a secretion of beta endorphins, and that's sort of they call it the happy hormone, if you will. And so what the soldiers do is they work out with KAATSU fairly vigorously. The more vigorously you work out with KAATSU, the more of this beta endorphin you're going to produce, and it actually helps them feel less stressed out. And so we have many cases of those. I think the youngest person who's uses it for mental health was an 18-year-old female. She was there was an issue that she had that needed to be addressed, and she uses KAATSU very, very religiously daily, and it helps her do well. So what we recommend is, and the easiest thing to do is put the KAATSU bands on your arms and do a bunch of hand clenches slowly and fast. What that does is it very quickly builds up lactate in the muscle. That sends a signal to the brain, and then the human growth hormone and the beta endorphin is produced. Secondly, we have plenty of people who they don't have any mental health issues, but they're under a tremendous amount of stress, either at work, with family issues or other issues. And for them, and we've done some testing on this, is they do KAATSU within an hour of going to bed. If you do it at KAATSU within an hour going to bed, put them on your arms, use a KAATSU cycle, and do very gentle KAATSU. In other words, don't be lifting weights, don't be doing squats, but just relax, roll your shoulders forwards, roll your shoulders backwards, do a little bit of stretching of the upper body, and that's it. What that actually helps do before you go to bed is actually it increases elasticity of the veins of the neck. It also actually increases the amount of capillaries in the brain, literally increases, not increase elasticity, but literally increase. And this allows us to get into a deeper sleep faster. And we all know if we have a good night's sleep, higher quality sleep, then the recovery aspects of good sleep is one way to address mental stress. So that's how we or our users use KAATSU for that issue. Second question is, I recently purchased a KAATSU C4 model. The arms work perfectly. However, the leg bands run and run and never seem to fill. If bands, whether they're on the arms or legs, run and run and run and never seem to fill, there is one probably 90% reason. The issue is most probably, and I have a leg band here, and I have the C4 unit here, is this connector tube is most probably not exactly connected. So what you do is you want to hear this. I didn't hear anything. You want to hear a click. You want to hear that click. If you don't hear that click, that means there's a click. Let me try it again without a click. That means there's not a tight connection and air leaks out. That's most probably the issue. Secondarily, there may be a leak in the tube somewhere where the compressor is pushing out air, but somewhere along the line, there is a leak in the tube. What you can do is you can look very closely, sort of, and usually the leak is near the edges. Take the tube, look at it very closely, and sort of stretch it out. And you may be able to see a hole there. If there's a hole, let's say here, all you have to do is cut it off and then reattach the tube, and then that leaking is there. And then thirdly, what could happen, could have happened, is there may be a leak in the seam somewhere here where water is leaking out. That would be, those three reasons are 99% of the reasons why the leg bands or any bands don't inflate. And so what's happening is the compressor inside the unit is pushing out air, but the air is not getting into the inner air bladder. What's happening is there's a leak somewhere. Most probably it's in the connection, it's in the tube, or it's in the band, usually in the valve itself. If you call our customer service number that's on the bottom of the KAATSU website, they can walk you through this in more detail. The same person asked, my C4 unit needs repair. Who do I contact? I live in Palos Verdes Estates, which is in Southern California. So I think your first question said, I purchased a C4 and the arms work perfectly, but the second one says my C4 unit needs repair. So you contact the customer service people. The number is at the bottom of the KAATSU website, and you can, it's a 1-800 number. I don't know it off the top of my head. I think it's 1-800 something something KAATSU, and the number is there. I'm going to go back to see if I can get Sheila.
Hi. Hi, Stephen.
Hi.
Hey, yeah. Yeah, it was on my end. My mic was off. Hey,
Okay.
Stephen. So
Yes.
I've done KAATSU a year and a half now. And my C3 recently, I think it was the battery situation, and I've just recently sent it in to get it repaired. So I ordered and received the C4, and I'm the one who said the arms are working perfectly. I love it because I mean it's real snappy and it runs through perfectly. But when I put on now I didn't purchase new bands, but when I put on my leg bands with my new C4, I'm the one who said it runs and runs and runs. So there's something going on with the leg bands, but the same connections and the same tubes are doing the arms, and they're working perfectly. That's why I'm a little confused.
Okay. Okay. So it's not the connector, it's not the tubes, because they work well with the arms.
That's
it's
correct.
actually the tube. I mean, sorry, the bands itself. It might be the seam right in here. The best thing to do is actually take your band, put it in a sink of water or a tub or something. Just fold it up and put it in water. And if you bubbles coming out, then there's a leak. It's as simple as that. And call the 1-800 number. Again, I apologize for the number that I don't remember the number. But if you put this in water, if there's no leak, you will not see any bubbles, and it's no problem. These are waterproof, so don't worry about it. But if there's a leak, the simplest way is simply take the band, put it in a sink or a bucket of water, bathtub, and just look at it for 15-20 seconds, and bubbles will appear if there's a leak. And sometimes the leak is so minute, it does take more than 5 or 6 seconds. I mean, you'll have to put it in there for 15-20 seconds and just look around, and the bubbles will be, if there's a leak, they'll be easily identifiable.
Because the bladders are filling, so that's what's confusing.
Oh,
but the the actual unit, the C4 unit, it works perfectly fine on my arms. It's a quick run through, exactly as it should be. But when it comes to the leg bands, which I've used with, great success in the past with my old one, since I got the new one, yeah, and it seems to click. So I've checked the tightness. It seems to click. I will check, but the bladder does get full. I mean, my legs are full.
I see. So it's getting full, but it just doesn't stop every 30 seconds.
That's correct. That's correct. It's
Okay.
like it's not registering that it's full when it registers perfectly with my arms.
Yeah. Okay. The best thing is to run this through with customer service, and they'll do
Okay.
a bunch of diagnostic tests with you,
Oh,
and then
okay.
they'll say, okay, no problem. We'll replace the band, or
Okay.
maybe
Yeah,
whatever they're
whatever it.
at walking
Okay.
through. Yeah.
Well, then I will put a call into customer service and set up an appointment to do that because I'm Stephen, I'm addicted to
Okay.
KAATSU. And
Cool.
it hurt me. I had to wait a week to send in the
Okay.
old one and then get the new one. And
Yeah.
I've just been using the arms since the legs
Uh-huh.
seem to really stress the
Uh-huh.
C4 by it keeps running.
When you were using with or if the leg bands were functioning well, what kind of exercises were you doing on the legs? Were you just walking or doing
Yes,
exercise?
just I was wearing them. I put them on every morning. It's around the house doing regular house cleaning.
Yeah.
Nothing strenuous.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, in that interim, when you don't receive or you don't have access to your leg bands, you can still put the armbands on and do the exact same thing.
Okay.
So
Right.
whether we have the
Yeah.
arms or the legs on, do the same thing. And we know the effects are the same because when we work with amputees who
Uh-huh.
don't have a limb,
Right.
legs and arms, we still use this. Uh, we still have them put the band on what they call the stump or the residual limb
Right.
there. So
I know
in
exactly.
that interim.
Yes. And I was waiting for today to talk to you in person about this. And
Okay.
I have in this last week just been using my arms because
Okay.
I'm concerned about stressing it because the legs just would run and run and run and not find completion, you
Yeah.
know? So I will get a hold of customer service and run through diagnostics and hopefully find a solution.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I just want you to know how much I love it, how much I
Okay.
rely on it. I just think it's yeah. And I'm not doing a strenuous workout. I'm
Yes.
not doing I'm
Perfect.
almost 70 and I'm just loving the practical strength that it
Yes.
gives me.
Perfect. That's exactly what we want to see in people. Sometimes you go on YouTube and you see these very young people doing these incredible athletic
Yeah.
feats, and that's good. They can still use
Yeah.
it. In reality, most of our users are over the age of 50, and
Uh-huh.
most of those people who see the greatest benefit are people as yourself that are simply using KAATSU in their
Yeah.
normal everyday movements and lifestyle.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
And
so keep it up.
I love it. Yes. So
Okay.
thank you so much. And
All
I
right.
will get a hold of customer service and find out, if it's at my end or if I need to
Okay.
order new bands or what I need to do.
Okay, will do.
Thanks, Stephen.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
So, bye. Let me go back to, I'm going to share my screen again because we have one more question on the PowerPoint. And where is it? Come on. Oh, here we go. And so, um, oops, sorry. It's, come on. Had a technical difficulty with my PowerPoint. Oh, here we go. Okay. Oh. So the third question is, I don't know why this white screen is here. Third question is, I bought KAATSU to help with thumb tendonitis in both my hands. I've been doing the KAATSU course exercise with the bands for about a month, 6 cycles on the low setting. Things seemed better. So I added some soup cans for weights yesterday, and later in the day they were hurting again. What did you suggest for thumb tendonitis? In the case of and I wish my PowerPoint would come up, but we'll address the question anyway. Is what you were doing without the soup cans was great. This is what we recommend. We recommend that you put the bands on, and when you do that, you engorge all of the tiny capillaries around your thumb, your hand, etc. And so let me just
Oh, I do have another
let me yeah, let me I want to tell Sheila if she could I'm going to stop, and Sheila, if I'm going to mute you for right now, Sheila. All right. And so what we want to do in the oh, now I muted her, and I need to go back to sharing the screen. Then I'll get back. Okay. Okay. So when you had any kind of tendonitis, elbow, wrist, finger, etc., thumb, this case, what you want to do is you want to engorge the limb in blood as you were doing, and just do simple movement. Some of the simple movements can be as simple as wiping a countertop, taking a squeeze ball, doing self massage in the area. And the reason why is when you have tendonitis, so it's an inflammation of the tendon. We look at the body as being capillary rich or capillary poor. When we think of a capillary rich part of the body, that's an organ like a heart, a liver, kidneys. Those have a lot of capillaries. They're very red. Then we go along the scale, and what's another part of the body that is very capillary rich? That would be a muscle, a bicep, a quadricep. Again, if you looked at the muscle inside the body, it'd be very red. Then you get to less capillary poor parts of the body, a bone, white. It does have capillaries, but that's not the main part of the bone. And then you get to the connective tissue, which are ligaments and tendons, and those have much fewer capillaries. So in order to engorge those capillaries in the very capillary poor parts of the body, like the tendon in your thumb, what you need to do is do very, very slow and gradual KAATSU. So start on the KAATSU cycle on low, take that through, do another one on low, take that through, take another one on low, take it through. 6 cycles would be very good. If you wanted to increase the pressure to medium, that would be very good. I'll show you after I explain here how you can increase to medium, because in order to engorge the capillary poor parts of the body, your tendon, it does take time, and you need to do it very gradually. Once you do that, then the body naturally starts to aid itself in the reduction of that inflammation. But then when you do something more vigorous, like using soup cans at weights, then you're overstressing that part of your body, especially if you're doing it with KAATSU. So I would go back. I would not do any kind of weight training or even lifting soup cans or water bottles, but just do regular kind of movement, and that would actually engorge the tendon. In addition, if you do that slowly and gradually, and this is why we would recommend 6 cycles, It also produces a thing called C-reactive protein. C-reactive protein is a protein that actually is a marker for inflammation. And what you want to do is when that is reduced, the inflammation is reduced, and that it's the inflammation that's causing that discomfort and pain. So do it long and gradual. Do regular kind of movements. No need to do soup cans or weight training or anything. Quite often, if you do some kind of movement like wiping a countertop with a rag, wet rag, just very gently, that actually helps. It can help to stretch your forearm one way or the other, and this would all be make your forearm feel much better. Okay, there's a few other questions. Okay, another question is, I like using the leg bands especially. There are some exercises I'd like to try on the floor, but it seems unwise to lie on my side on the floor and do leg exercises. This would put pressure on the bands while they inflate, which I understand should be avoided. Is this correct? No, you can, pelvic floor exercises, sit-ups, stretching would be quite good. When the band is inflated on the legs, we simply don't want you to sit down hard on the band. So don't plop down on a chair, especially a hard chair, because what happens is that's like a balloon. The internal bladder would literally pop. But if you're lying on the floor and doing stretches or sit-ups or leg raises or something, anything like that, mild pressure on the bands is perfectly okay when you're doing leg exercises on the floor. Another question is, I had a dimpling after wearing the bands, but it resolved. I was as I was more cautious with not putting the bands on too tightly. This must be related to the question about permanent dents in your arm. Yes, the bands can leave. We call it a KAATSU tattoo. So if I put the bands on my bare arm, and we always recommend that you put the band over clothing. So, in other words, I would put it over a short sleeve shirt or jersey top or something. And you do this, there's no what we would call the KAATSU tattoo or dimpling or dent. However, when you do put the band on a bare arm like this, and I'm going to leave this band on for a while, and I'm going to turn it on. This is a B2. So it's the wireless model. I'm going to turn it on here. I'm going to go to my app. And here's the app on my phone. You see it there. I'm going to go advanced mode. And you can see how this is red. I'm going to pair the unit on my phone here so you can see. And it turns blue. That means that now the phone is connected with the unit on my arm, and I'm going to do a progressive cycle on my arms, and it is now going. You can see, I don't have my B2 on this arm. I only have on this arm. It's on my bare arm. So as we're going to talk this through, this will be continuing to go. And let's see if I have that tattoo. Again, I don't have a tattoo or a dimpling because I always put it over clothing. But it is tight. It's a one finger tightness, not a two finger. I can't fit two fingers in. Certainly can't fit three fingers in, but I can fit one if I move it, jiggle it in there. So this band is inflating, deflating, inflating, deflating in the same way that the other C3 or C4 models go. So let's see if there's any dimpling, and there probably will be. So the question is, I recently had a fractured foot and had to wear a cast, and I was not able to exercise for 12 weeks. I use KAATSU sitting down. I'm afraid my lack of normal exercise would mean that I would gain weight, but I didn't. In fact, I lost a few pounds. I attribute this to using KAATSU. You mentioned KAATSU increases HGH, human growth hormone, which I know increases muscle, thus metabolism. Do you think KAATSU helped me to avoid gaining weight during my inactivity? Absolutely, it did. Now, remember, we look at activity in the non-KAATSU world as getting up and walking around and doing things. But in fact, when I have the band on my arm, the normal person would say, I'm not doing anything. I'm being very inactive right now. But in fact, internally, my arm, my hand, you can see the difference. Just like Tina, that 56-year-old esthetician. The fact that my arm, sort of look, this is my normal color without the KAATSU. This is my arm with the KAATSU. There's a very distinct color differentiation. I've only had the band on now, 2 minutes, the 30 seconds times 4 times. Only had the band on 2 minutes, and you can see, and lighting is not that good, but you can see a very distinct difference between this hand and this hand. But normal people in the non-KAATSU world would say, I'm not doing anything. I'm being very inactive. However, metabolically speaking, at the cellular level with my vascular tissue is working out right now. I am literally using calories. You can see the difference in one hand versus the other. Look at this difference. This hand is, by common definition, being inactive. But in reality, you can actually see the physical difference, the visual difference between KAATSU and non-KAATSU. So when you were, for those 12 weeks with the cast and just using the KAATSU on your legs, perhaps you did not look at your legs very closely like we have with our hands. But this is what was happening with your leg when you had a cast on. So what is happening here? So here, this is my normal hand. This is my KAATSU hand. You can see how my veins pop out when I have KAATSU on. So what does that mean? That means that there's much more blood in this hand versus this hand. Now, when our veins and arteries and capillaries are engorged in blood, with every heartbeat, let's assume that my heart is beating at 60 beats a minute. So it's going dun, 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 dun. Every time there is an expansion of the vascular tissue, that requires energy. So my body is using energy in order to expand the vascular tissue. It's burning calories. This hand is literally requiring more energy to function than this hand right now. Why? I've got my KAATSU in the cycle mode, getting, let's see, how much pressure do we have? We have 170-ish SKU of pressure. I'm sitting here on the surface being inactive, but in reality, I'm very active internally. And so these veins are requiring more energy, more calories to expand. And therefore, when you were unable to exercise for 12 weeks, but using KAATSU, you were doing the same thing. You were burning more, you were using more energy, you were using more calories, and therefore you thought you were inactive, in the non-KAATSU world, but within the KAATSU world, you were metabolically very active. So good for you. Next question is, since I have used KAATSU for a year and a half, should I be increasing the time or going into medium versus staying on low? I use KAATSU every morning, sometimes in the afternoon, and sometimes before bed. Very good. So how do you know when to go from low to medium and then from medium to high? And it's a very simple, we use a very simple tool. We do it on ourselves, and it's visual, very easy. So here I have the KAATSU, not on this hand, but on this hand. And what you do, if you have it on your arms, you take your thumb or a forefinger and you press it into your palm. So I press it very firmly. So I'm pressing it hard, and then I release. And you can see how, if I do this, I press and release. You see how my skin goes white, and then it goes back to the KAATSU color. So press, release, and it goes back. The time that it takes to return to a KAATSU color, so this pink color, is we call capillary refill time, or CRT, capillary refill time. How long does it take for the capillaries to return the blood? If it is 1 second, and that's about 1 second, so 1001, 1002, 1003. If it takes that, so ready, go, 1001, about a second. If it's about a second, then your body is ready to go to the next level. So go from low to medium or from medium to high. If, for example, I pressed and it took 1001, 1002, 1003, and it was still white, this band or the pressure is way, way, way too high. It should always be, this capillary refill time should always be 1 to 2 seconds. On the legs, it can be 2 to 3 seconds. But really, you want this nice pink, rosy color relative to your normal color. And you can judge that it's safe if you press and that capillary refill time is quick, a second or two. If it's 3 seconds or more, then the bands are too tight, they're placed in the wrong position, or the pressure is too high. And so that's how you can you can know how and when to move from low to medium to high. And so it's been a little over an hour, and of course I've done all the talking, so I apologize for that, but we were able to hear a variety of questions, and I will see you again in our next webinar. Feel free, Ralph, one of our senior executives, will send out another email and alerting you to the time, and you can send in your questions ahead of time so I can prepare some sort of PowerPoint presentation like we did here, and we can go through different examples of what we've done and what KAATSU does. And what I'll leave you with, this is Dr. Sato. This was a lecture that he gave with Dr. Nakajima, the lead cardiologist at the Harvard Medical School. This is probably in 2015 or so. And this is previously, Dr. Sato was actually knighted in the Knights of Ecumenical Humanitarian. It's basically knighthood for people who are healthcare providers, and so this was his knighting ceremony. But yeah, we have a lot of different pictures that I can explain at a later date. These are our special forces soldiers that use KAATSU in various ways, and so whenever we as we go on these lecture series, we have a lot to explain, a lot of questions, a lot of scientific data if people's interested, a lot of different how-tos. And I'll end with this one here. This is Justin. Justin is the amputee, and hopefully you can hear this.
This is Justin. He just experienced his first KAATSU cycles on his arm that he had to get amputated after a crazy story we won't go into right now. But Justin, give me the basics on what your arm feels like now after 2 KAATSU cycles, man.
It definitely feels a lot better. I can feel like the bone doesn't hurt as much, and I can definitely feel the difference in the arm where the vascular system, it helps me move it freely and a whole lot less pain.
Less pain.
Less pain.
Better circulation.
Less pain.
And less pain.
Absolutely.
Holy crap, dude. That's why I joined this company, man. Awesome. Thank you very much. And again, Marine Corps Devil Dogs with his new prosthetic from Walter Reed. Look at this. It's like Luke Skywalker's new hand. Give me a full extension, brother. This is right after doing KAATSU. Does it feel any different after doing KAATSU with it?
It feels like I have a little bit more control of it. It feels like the sensors are getting better contact from where it needs to get to. But yeah, I definitely feel like I can move it a lot better.
Right on, dude. Say hi to Dr. Sato.
What's going on, Dr. Sato?
Awesome. We're going to change your world, brother. Nice.
Rock on.
KAATSU cycles. He's on cycle medium. And started at 10 pounds. Actually, started way too heavy, 25. We immediately went down to 10, then 8. Now he's at 5 pounds. Justin, KAATSU cycles with movement like this. What's it feel like?
Oh, it's ridiculous. Feels like I'm doing 80 pounds rather than 5.
Get after it, brother. How's your left arm feeling?
Like I got weight in that one too. It's feeling good. Yeah.
Excellent. Keep going, brother. Give me 2 more. Good job. Justin, this is going to Dr.
I want to show you this and point out. Look at the end of his residual limb. Look at how it's actually quivering. Notice how he said he feels like he has weight in a hand that doesn't exist. That's profoundly important. Blood it's engorged right now, his residual limb. But look at when he's moving it. His residual limb, his muscle is acting as if he has an actual hand there.
Good.
Yeah. Excellent. Keep going, brother. Give me 2 more. Good job. This is going to Dr. Sato now. What do you think?
Hey, Dr. Sato, I've worked with y'all for the past couple of days with this KAATSU program, and it is just absolutely amazing. I used it yesterday, and I'm using it today. Last night, my pain was significantly reduced when I was there. It was just impressive, man. I mean, obviously amazing. And I put my prosthetic on, and I could fire it better. And this is just an amazing program, and I really appreciate it. I really do.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
No worries. Thank you.
And you'll be getting one in a few days. Compliments of Operation Healing Forces, brother.
KAATSU strong, brother.
Awesome. Thanks, Matt.
So I'll leave you with that and see you next time. Thank you.